It began on a dark and stormy night, the kind you only read about in horror stories. I could feel it lurking in the shadows, a presence so sinister it sent shivers down my spine. At first, I brushed it off as my imagination running wild in the midst of the howling wind outside. But as the nights passed, the feeling of being watched grew stronger, more tangible. It was like a sense of unease crept into my life like a silent predator, unnoticed at first, but growing stronger with each passing night. I could feel it in the air, a malevolent presence that hung around me like a thick, suffocating fog. At first, I dismissed it as my imagination playing tricks on me. But as the days turned into weeks, the truth became impossible to ignore. Every night, when the world outside was cloaked in darkness and silence, I would hear it. A low, guttural growl that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. It echoed through the empty corridors of my home, sending icy tendrils of fear snaking down my spine. I would lie in bed, paralyzed with terror, as the sound grew closer and closer, until it felt like the very walls themselves were vibrating with its menace. The sound would send my heart racing, my pulse quickening in fear. I tried to convince myself it was just a stray dog prowling around, but deep down, I knew it was something far more malevolent. As the weeks turned into months, the terror escalated. And then came the dreams. Vivid, haunting nightmares that left me drenched in cold sweat and trembling with dread. In my sleep, I would see it, a shadowy figure with glowing red eyes that burned with a hunger so intense it made my blood run cold. It would stalk me through darkened forests and crumbling ruins, its laughter echoing in the twisted corridors of my mind. But it was when I woke that the true horror began. I would open my eyes to find claw marks etched into my walls and bedroom door, as if whatever was out there was trying to claw its way in. There were long, ragged gouges that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. The stench of sulfur pervaded the air, a sickly sweet scent that made my stomach churn with revulsion. And every night, without fail, I would find myself paralyzed in bed, unable to move as the growling drew closer and closer, until it felt like it was right beside me, breathing its foul, hot breath against my skin. I stopped leaving the house, afraid of what I might see lurking in the shadows outside. I stopped sleeping, my nights consumed by the constant dread of its presence. I could feel its eyes on me, burning into my very soul with a hatred so intense it chilled me to the bone. No locks or prayers could keep it at bay, for this was no ordinary creature of the night. I was consumed by a terror so all-encompassing, so consuming, that I felt like I was drowning in a sea of my own fear. And then, on the stroke of the 4th month, it finally revealed itself to me. A devil dog, black as pitch, with eyes that gleamed like burning embers in the darkness. It stood at the foot of my bed, its form shifting and twisting like smoke in the wind. For a moment, time seemed to stand still, the air thick with the stench of decay and malevolence. I could feel its breath, hot and fetid as it snarled in triumph. I was paralyzed with fear, unable to move as it drew closer, its intentions clear. The devil dog lunged, its jaws gaping wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth gleaming in the dim light. With each unholy breath, a cacophony of wails, screams, and unearthly moans poured forth, echoing the torments of the damned. The air grew thick with the stench of sulfur, and my heart pounded in my chest as I struggled to comprehend the sheer horror unfolding before me. It was as if the gates of hell itself had been unleashed, and I found myself paralyzed by the sheer terror of the infernal symphony emanating from the creature's gaping maw. I screamed, a sound so raw and full of primal terror that I felt the walls themselves reverberate with it. Suddenly, my bedroom door creaked open, and a sliver of light spilled into the room, casting fleeting shadows against the walls. In that moment, the demon hound vanished, leaving behind only the memory of its presence. As my body continued to tremble, I saw the ray of hope that saved me. It was my boyfriend who had returned from his military tour overseas. His presence flooded me with a mixture of relief and disbelief. But before I could fully comprehend, the light retreated, leaving only darkness behind. He rushed to my side, his eyes reflecting the same terror that gripped my own soul. Tears flowed freely down my cheeks, a release of the fear that had consumed me in his absence. But in his arms, I found sanctuary from the nightmares that haunted me. Now, years later, the devil dog still haunts my nightmares, a spectre of pure malevolence that lurks just beyond the edge of my sanity. And I live in fear of the night, knowing that when darkness falls, it will come for me once more, eager to claim me for its own.